Welcome to the show, folks. Today, we're diving into the dark side of travel. We're talking about the 10 most dangerous countries to visit right now. We'll break down why these places are so messed up, from government policies to everyday life. And trust me, you're gonna hear some stories that'll make you hug your passport tight. Stay tuned, folks, this is gonna get heavy. First up, we got Syria, a country that has seen more than its fair share of suffering and devastation. It's been a war zone for over a decade now. A brutal civil war that's ripped the country apart, leaving nothing but ruins and shattered lives in its wake. You got Assad, the dictator clinging to power backed by Russia and Iran, using every means at his disposal to maintain his grip. Then you got rebel groups, some backed by the West, all fighting for a piece of the pie, each with their own agendas and visions for Syria's future. And caught in the middle, the Syrian people, ordinary men, women, and children who just want to live their lives in peace. Imagine being born into that chaos, bombs going off, buildings crumbling around you. It's a nightmare that never ends. Schools are bombed out, kids are traumatized, and the future? Man, what future? It's hard to see any hope when everything around you is falling apart. Life expectancy has plummeted, and it's a miracle if you make it to your next birthday. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and families are constantly in mourning. I heard about this one family just trying to flee the fighting. They had dreams, hopes, just like anyone else. They packed up what little they had left and started walking, hoping to reach the border, praying for safety and a chance at a new life. But they got caught in a crossfire. The violence is indiscriminate, sparing no one. The parents were killed instantly, and their little girl, she was maybe 5 years old, she was just gone. One moment here, the next, a memory. That's the reality in Syria, man. A place where survival is a daily struggle, and the scars of war run deep. Next up, we're heading east to Afghanistan. The US pullout, the Taliban back in control. It's like hitting the rewind button on 20 years of progress, especially for women. Women? They're basically prisoners in their own homes. Can't work, can't go to school, can't even show their faces in public. And if they step out of line, brutal punishments, public beatings, even executions. Education for girls, out the window. Life expectancy, low, especially if you're a woman who dares to speak out. I read this one account from a female journalist who managed to escape. She talked about how the Taliban came to her door looking for her brother, who was a musician. When they couldn't find him, they beat her father nearly to death. From one war-torn country to another, we're heading to South Sudan. This place is a textbook case of what happens when corruption and tribalism run rampant. They gained independence back in 2011 and everyone was hopeful, but it all went to hell pretty quickly. Civil war broke out, fueled by ethnic tensions and power struggles. Government forces, rebel groups, they're all guilty of horrific atrocities. Massacres, rape, torture, you name it, they've done it. The people are caught in the crossfire, starving, displaced, living in constant fear. Education system? Practically non-existent. Life expectancy? One of the lowest in the world. These people have been through hell and back and there's no end in sight. Chapter 4. Yemen, a forgotten war. Now we're going to Yemen, a country most people couldn't even find on a map. It's a place that rarely makes the headlines, yet it's been suffering for years. They've been locked in a proxy war for years. Saudi Arabia on one side, Iran on the other. This conflict has turned Yemen into a battleground for regional dominance. The Saudis are bombing the hell out of the place, trying to push back the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. The airstrikes are relentless and the devastation is unimaginable. Hospitals, schools, markets, nothing is off limits. The infrastructure is in ruins and the civilian population is caught in the crossfire. Millions are on the brink of starvation. It's basically the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet right now. The lack of food, clean water, and medical supplies is staggering. Imagine being a parent in Yemen, watching your kids waste away because there's no food. The desperation and helplessness are beyond words. Imagine having to choose between feeding your family and sending your kids to school. Education becomes a luxury when survival is at stake. I remember seeing this photo, it was heartbreaking. The image captured the raw pain and suffering of the innocent. This little girl, she couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. She was just skin and bones. Her eyes told a story of unimaginable hardship and resilience. Despite the dire situation, there are glimmers of hope. Humanitarian aid workers are tirelessly trying to provide relief, risking their lives to help those in need. Communities are coming together, trying to rebuild and support each other. The resilience of the Yemeni people is truly inspiring, even in the face of such overwhelming adversity. Chapter 5. Somalia, Pirates and Warlords. Next, we're sailing into Somalia, a country synonymous with chaos and piracy. They've been without a functioning government for decades, ruled by warlords and militias. The terrorist group Al-Shabaab controls large parts of the country, terrorizing the population. They're known for their brutality, suicide bombings, assassinations, you name it. And then there's the pirates operating off the coast, hijacking ships, taking hostages. But for the people of Somalia, it's all too real. Education is a luxury few can afford and life expectancy is dismally low. I heard this crazy story about a group of fishermen who were attacked by pirates. They ended up chasing the pirates off, but not before one of their own was killed. Chapter 6. Central African Republic, a nation divided. Hold on tight, folks, because we're heading deep into the heart of Africa, to the Central African Republic. This place has been ravaged by civil war for years, fueled by religious and ethnic tensions. Muslims fighting Christians, different militias vying for control. It's a recipe for disaster. The level of violence is off the charts. Massacres, mutilations, sexual violence. It's like humanity has taken a back seat. Children are forced to become soldiers, women are treated like property, and the cycle of violence just keeps spinning. Education has been decimated, with schools destroyed and teachers fleeing for their lives. Life expectancy is abysmally low, a reflection of the brutal reality on the ground. It's a place where hope seems to have vanished. Next up, we're going to Iraq, a country forever scarred by war. The echoes of conflict resonate through its streets and cities, a constant reminder of the turmoil that has shaped its recent history. The U.S. invasion back in 2003 unleashed chaos that continues to this day. The initial shockwaves of the invasion have long passed, but the aftershocks are still felt in every corner of the nation. Saddam Hussein is gone, but the country is still grappling with sectarian violence, corruption, and the rise of ISIS. These issues have created a complex web of challenges that the Iraqi people face daily. While the Iraqi government has made some progress in recent years, the security situation remains fragile. Efforts to stabilize the nation are ongoing, but the path to peace is fraught with obstacles. Bombings, shootings, kidnappings, they're still a part of daily life, especially in Baghdad. The capital city, once a bustling hub, now lives under the shadow of constant threat. Imagine living with that constant fear, never knowing when or where the next attack might happen. The psychological toll on the population is immense, affecting every aspect of daily life. Education has suffered immensely, with schools destroyed and teachers fleeing the violence. Children, the future of Iraq, are growing up in an environment where learning is a luxury, not a given. Life expectancy has improved slightly but remains lower than pre-war levels. The healthcare system, strained by years of conflict, struggles to meet the needs of the population. The scars of war run deep in Iraq, and it will take generations to heal. The memories of lost loved ones and the destruction of homes and communities linger, casting a long shadow over the nation's future. I remember reading about this Iraqi family who lost their son in a suicide bombing. Their story is just one of many, a poignant reminder of the human cost of conflict. The resilience of the Iraqi people is remarkable, but the road to recovery is long and arduous. Chapter 8. Libya, the aftermath of revolution. From one revolution-torn country to another, we're heading to Libya. Remember the Arab Spring back in 2011? Libya was at the forefront, overthrowing Muammar Gaddafi after decades of dictatorship. But instead of ushering in a new era of peace and prosperity, the revolution plunged Libya into chaos. Rival militias, each vying for control, turned the country into a battleground. Human trafficking, arms smuggling, it's a haven for criminal activity. For the average Libyan, life is a daily struggle. Basic services like electricity and water are unreliable, and the economy is in shambles. Education has been disrupted, and life expectancy has plummeted. It's a stark reminder that revolutions, while sometimes necessary, often come at a steep price. Chapter 9. Democratic Republic of the Congo, rich land, poor people. Get ready for this one, folks, because we're going deep into the jungle, to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This place is a paradox. It's incredibly rich in natural resources, diamonds, gold, coltan, you name it, they got it. But the people are some of the poorest on earth. Why? Because of corruption, exploitation, and seemingly endless conflict. Armed groups terrorize the population, vying for control of the country's vast mineral wealth. They use rape as a weapon of war, forcing children to become soldiers, and committing atrocities that are too horrific to describe. Education is a distant dream for many Congolese children, and life expectancy is tragically low. It's a heartbreaking situation, a country with so much potential, held hostage by greed and violence. Chapter 10. Venezuela, from riches to ruin. Last but not least, we're heading to South America, to Venezuela. This one's a real head-scratcher. Venezuela was once one of the wealthiest countries in South America, sitting on vast oil reserves. But thanks to government mismanagement, corruption, and socialist policies that went haywire, the country is now an economic basket case. Hyperinflation has rendered the currency practically worthless, people are starving, and basic goods are in short supply. Imagine going to the grocery store and finding empty shelves or having to wait in line for hours just to buy a loaf of bread. That's the reality in Venezuela. Education has suffered, with teachers fleeing the country in droves, and life expectancy has declined. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of political extremism and economic mismanagement. Choose your destinations wisely. That's it, folks. 10 of the most dangerous countries in the world right now, places where just surviving is a victory. It's heavy stuff, I know, but it's important to be aware of what's going on in the world. We get so caught up in our own little bubbles, it's easy to forget that there are people out there facing unimaginable hardships. So next time you're planning a trip, take a moment to consider the situation in that country. Stay safe out there, folks.